and welcome to this video about using Power BI and Power Query to create a dynamic matrix type effect where we use the Rankx function to be able to rank data by specific criteria. I thought this end result was pretty cool. I thought that it was quite a challenging problem and I was pretty chuffed with the end result. I thought I'd share it with you all, see what you think. Maybe you can use a similar technique in something you need to solve. Enjoy. Basically, just to start off, I want to orientate you as far as the data is concerned. So as you can see, I have a list of companies. I have a field that indicates when that company was created on the data system. I also have a field that indicates when that company was last reviewed. And finally, I have a field for the relationship manager. So what happens is that each of these relationship managers has a day of the week that they have to review the companies that are allocated to them. Ultimately, we're looking to create a grid that shows for each day of the week which relationship managers are going to be responsible for which companies. Now, on the other tab, I have information about the various relationship managers. So as you can see, Ramona's on duty on Mondays, Sandy on Tuesdays, and so on. So each manager has his or her day of the week that they are responsible for doing the management of their companies. So what I've done now is I've opened up Power BI and I've connected to that Excel document that we had open a moment ago. And in that document, you can see we have these two tables, one for the company and one for the relationship manager. Of course, we do have the tabs as well, but we're not going to use those. We're going to use the tables. And I'm going to now go to the transform, the Power Query steps. I'm going to say transform data and go into Power Query. We need to make a couple of changes to our data. So first, start off with the company information. And what we're looking for here is an ability for us to get the reviewed in app date if that exists. If it doesn't exist, what we want to do is we want to get the created date. So reviewed in app date is the first choice. If that doesn't exist, then rather get the created date. Right. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is go to add column, custom column, and I'm going to call my custom column last review date. And that last review date is going to be based on an if statement. If the reviewed in app date is null, then it's going to use the created date, else it's going to use the reviewed in app date. So if I click on OK to that, and now we can see we have our last review date. I'm just going to change this to a date field to ensure that it is correctly identified as a date. And now I don't need this created date and reviewed in app date, so I'm going to delete these two. So I'm going to remove those columns, and there we go. The next thing we need to do now is under the relationship managers, I need to essentially create a column that gives us a day of the week for each of these weekdays. So in other words, Monday will be 1, Tuesday will be 2, Wednesday will be 3, etc. All right, so I'm going to go and use a conditional column option for this. And I'm going to say weekday number, and that is going to be based on the weekday. If the weekday is equal to a Monday, then it's going to be a 1. And now I'm going to do a clause for each of the days. Right, so now we've got our weekday number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next step is the tricky step, because what we now need to do is we need to ascertain what the forthcoming Monday happens to be. Now, the recording is being made on a Thursday. So today, if I was to get back the weekday for today, it would bring back Thursday. So for Cecil, the next opportunity for him to be on duty would be today. And for Seamus, it would be tomorrow. Whereas for Ramona, it will be the forthcoming Monday. Right, so to illustrate the issue here, what we've got is I've created a spreadsheet with the date, today's date. Today is a Thursday. The weekday is 4. So you can see the weekday function that I've used in there to return that date. And we've got all of our relationship managers, the weekday that they're on duty. And what we've done now is I've created a switch statement to essentially replace the weekday with the weekday number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, much as we had in Power BI. And I've now gone along and actually entered the next duty day for each of these relationship managers. So we can see Ramona, the next time she's on duty will be the 18th of December. Sandy will be the 19th. Martin will be the 20th. But here is where the complexity sits, because what you'll notice is that instead of being the 21st, Cecil is on duty today, because today happens to be a Thursday. So he's on duty on the 14th, and Seamus is on duty tomorrow, the 15th. And so if we were to calculate the number of days between today and when they're next on duty, we can see that in the case of Ramona, it's 4 days. In the case of Sandy, 5. In the case of Martin, 6. But in the case of Cecil, it's 0 days. Of course, it is today. And in the case of Seamus, it's 1 day in the future. So what we could do is we're going to go along and create a calculation here to try and get that value, that difference in days. And so I'm going to say equals if that weekday number is greater than or equal to whatever today's weekday is. Then we are going to go along and say, take that weekday number and subtract today's weekday number, right? Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to take 7 minus the difference between that weekday number and this weekday number. All right, so let's have a quick look at the result of that. So if I press enter now, and now we can see that goes 4, 5, 6, 0, 1. That corresponds exactly with the difference in days that we calculated earlier on. And so what we can do is we can say, great, the next duty day would be equal to that date, whatever it happens to be, plus the number of days calculated in the calculation. And as we can see, 18th, 19th, 20th, and 14th and 15th. If I changed this date, and if I said, let's go along and add 4 days onto this, right, that becomes the forthcoming Monday. And what that means is that Ramona is on duty that particular day. So as you can see, it matches 18th, 19th, 20, 21, 22. If I change that to today plus 5, now we can see that Ramona becomes the 25th of December. So it goes forward into the future. And then we've got 19, 20, 21, 22. All right, so what we need to do is we need to transcribe this level of logic into our Power Query. So we're going to tackle that next. Right, so we're back in Power Query now in Power BI. And what we want to do is we want to create a column that's going to replicate some of that logic that we've just seen in Excel. And what we now need to do is we need to take whatever the current date is and add those specific number of days that we calculated in Excel. So in order to do that, I'm going to use my custom column, and I'm going to call this custom column next duty day. Next duty day. I need to use a function within MQuery called AddDays, Date.AddDays, and we're going to use that datetime.localNow, open bracket, close bracket. That function is going to return whatever today's date was, whatever date it happens to be when the function runs. We want to add from the current date a certain number of days. As the IntelliSense implies, we now need to give back the number of days we want to add. And so this is where our if statement is going to come in. So we're going to say if the weekday number, that would be the existing column weekday number, is greater than or equal to, and here we need to use a function called day.of.week, date.DayOfWeek from the current date. And I use that modifier, that parameter 0, to ensure that Monday's returns as 1, Tuesdays as 2, etc. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to say, if that's the case, then we're going to do weekday number minus day of week for that local now. All right, if that's not the case, then we're going to say 7 minus, and in brackets, I'm going to wrap day of week for the date time local now minus that weekday number field, and close the brackets and close the brackets. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to go along and take whatever the date is at the time of the query executing, and it's then going to add a variable number of days depending on this if statement. So the if statement is going to ascertain whether it should use that function there. Otherwise, it's going to go along and use this other calculation. Right, so let's see how that works out, what result we get. So I click on OK. And as we can see, it now shows me for Ramona the forthcoming Monday is the 18th, the forthcoming Tuesday is the 19th, etc. But the forthcoming Thursday, today is Thursday, would show me today's date, and Friday would be tomorrow. So hence we get that. Now, the only thing I need to do is change this into a date column. And now I know what my forthcoming duty day is for each of these various relationship managers. Right, so what we now need to do is we need to create a column that allows us to rank the various companies that the relationship managers need to see. And that ranking is going to be based primarily on the last review date. But what we're going to find is many instances where the last review date is the same for multiple companies. And so we need to have an additional metric in here to include the company's name in that calculation. So if there's a tie with regards to the last review date, we then utilize the company's name to break that tie and create differences between the companies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a new column, create a calculated column. And for this column, I'm going to use the Rankx function. So I'm going to call this column my rank. I'm going to use the Rankx function because one of the first arguments that the Rankx function requires is a table. And we're going to filter our data set. We're going to use the filter function to filter our company table. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the relationship manager. Relationship manager is equal to the earlier relationship manager. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a little table. Each relationship manager will get a virtual table being built. And so what we're going to do is we're going to rank within that virtual table for each relationship manager. Right? So as I said before, what we need to use here in order to actually calculate both the last review date and the company name. But the problem here is that we need to be able to combine these two. One is a date, one is a string. I'm going to use a little function called format, and we're going to take that last review date. I'm going to convert that into a format of year, month, and day as a string. And I'm going to join that onto the company name. And what we're now going to do is I'm going to put in there a comma in ascending order. I don't need that second argument there. Take a look on Google about Rankx to understand all these different metrics and these parameters that I've entered there. And what we're going to do now is click on the tick box, press enter. I'm interested in seeing whether that ranking worked correctly. So I'm going to go and filter for just a single relationship manager. Let's try Cecil here and sort ascending. And if we notice Cecil, his oldest customer that he has to deal with is Arthur Anderson and Co. 15th of October was the last review date. Once again, you'll notice that the last review dates are the same for a number of different clients, but we still have a ranking here that differentiates between these because of the fact that we've taken both the last review date as well as the new company date. So we've got Arthur Anderson and Carrie, Paul D. Esquire and Deep Creek Pharmacy, etc., each been given a distinct and unique rank number, right? And if we were to just jump across onto one other, just to confirm that this is, and we see Seamus is the same, that he has a number of customers for the 15th, some on the 18th, some on the 21st, etc., etc. All right, so we've now got our rank for each of the relationship managers. Right, so now because we ultimately are trying to build a matrix with the dates, the name of the relationship manager down the left-hand side on the rows, and across the top, we want to see company 1, company 2, company 3, company 4, because on any given day, each relationship manager needs to deal with 4 companies during the course of that day. So what I now need to do is I need to ascertain a way of figuring out the company number. And for this, I'm going to go along once again, and I'm going to use a new column, and I'm going to create or use the function switch, right? Switch as well as mod. So let's take a look at that, and we're going to say company number is equal to, and I'm going to say switch, and the expression I'm going to use for this is I'm going to use a mod of the rank, where I'm going to divide that by 4. Right? So if we think about, if we divide 1 by 4, 4 will go into 1 0 times, leaving a remainder of 1. 4 will go into 2 0 times, leaving a remainder of 2. 4 will go into 3 0 times, leaving a remainder of 3. 4 will go into 4 once, leaving a remainder of 0. All right, so if we think about that scenario, what we can ascertain from that is that if the remainder is 0, then the result we want back is, it should say company 4. Company 4. If the remainder is 1, then that's going to be company 1. If the remainder is 2, then that's going to be company 2. And if the remainder is 3, that's going to be company 3. All right, so that use of that mod function really helps us out in this situation. And so I'm going to tick that and let's see what we get. So we can see now that we get company 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 based on the ranking of the customers and the last review date. So that gives us now our company number. All right, now the last piece of the puzzle, and possibly the most challenging one to get your head around, is we've got to figure out a way of ascertaining when this company is going to be next reviewed. And so if we think about the fact that for each relationship manager, we know when their next duty day is. And so based on the rank, either this company is going to be reviewed, during this round, perhaps the next round, the round after that, and so on and so forth. So let's take a look at how we might figure this one out. So I'm going to once again build a new column, and I'm going to call this column next review date. Next date is equal to, and for this I need to ascertain or bring back from the relationship managers table, I need to bring back when the next date is that this relationship manager was supposed to be on duty. So I'm going to use the related function, and I'm going to say that it's next duty day. And I need to say after that, I need to add onto this, I need to do a round up on that rank field divided by 4, 0. All right, so what that's going to do is it's going to round that value up. So for example, if we take this first one, 1 divided by 4 is obviously going to be 0.25. But if we round it up with 0 decimals, it's going to round it up to 1. 2 over 4 is going to be 0.5. Round up is going to round it up to 1. So all of these will get the value of 1. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5, on the other hand, will get 1.25, which will then round up to 2. So will 6, so will 7, and so will 8. So in other words, every 4 companies, it will increment that number by 1. And so what we can do is we can then say, okay, take that number, minus 1 from it, and multiply that by 7, right? So for this first few companies, these first 4, it will effectively become 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times 7 is obviously 0. And so it will stay on the current date, all right? Whereas the next week, it will add 1 on to that. 1 times 7 is going to be 7. It's going to go forward 7 days into the future. And now that we've done that, let's press enter and let's see what we get. Okay, and we now see the next review date for Seamus. Now, Seamus, if you recall, I'm just going to jump across onto Seamus. Seamus's duty day was a Friday. So his next available date for him to work on is the 15th of December. Go back again onto the company. We can see there is Seamus. His first 4 would be 15th, 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 15th. His next 4 are 7 days later, so the 22nd, 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 22nd. The next 4, 29th, 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 and so on. All right, so we've now gone along and calculated the next review date. I do want to just change the formatting of this, change this column. I'm going to choose to show this as DD space MMM space YYYY. That is formatting to show it as the days, the abbreviated month, and then the year. So there we go. And I've now got a field that I can utilize to figure out when Seamus is next on duty. Now we are back onto our report view, And we can now use the fields that we've been building over the last period to create the matrix we're looking for. So first thing I'm going to do is insert a matrix visual. And I'm now going to drag in the various fields that I've created. So what I'm going to do is bring in my company number into the columns. All right, so on the rows, what I need to see is my next review date. I'll drag that in. I don't want to see it as a hierarchy, so I'm going to just choose to not show the hierarchy and the relationship manager. And we can see there that we've got the drill down ability here. I'm going to drag in my new company name into the values. And if I expand this out, give myself a little bit of room here. We can see that all the various companies are being shown. Right, so we just need to make some changes to our formatting just to see things a bit better. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down in the hierarchy so we can see all of our various relationship managers. And now under my settings, I'm going to go along and I'm going to turn off my column subtotals, my row subtotals. And for row headers, I can turn off the plus minus icons and also turn off the step layout, which now gives us a view like this. And if I just modify the width of some of the columns, one of the 4 columns. And so what we can see now is there's Cecil, and we can see Cecil's next appointments. So there he's got to see Arthur Anderson, Carrie Paul D, Deep Creek Pharmacy, and Graphic Color Litho Inc. The following day, there's Seamus on duty, and there are his companies that he needs to deal with. The following Monday is Ramona on the 18th, and she needs to see these or deal with these companies, and so on and so forth. So we can see that our matrix is correctly showing us the information as we expected it to be displayed. Right, so that was how I solved that problem using a combination of Power Query and some DAX. I'm sure there are other ways of solving the problem. I would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how you might have solved that situation and come up with a solution. Let me know your thoughts. Look forward to hearing from you all. Take care. Cheers.